Right, oh, nearly fell off the chair. Hello again, Wednesday 21st of September, number 244. We have hit the 2/3 of the way through the challenge. So the end is in sight, we are getting there. And I'm going to celebrate the 2/3 anniversary with a whiskey that when it was first launched, strictly wasn't a whiskey according to the Scotch Whisky Association. So it's another blended malt, and this is from Compass Box. This was a very generous donation from Jason Stover, who I won't put a picture of him because I can't find one. And this particular one, now I have done Compass Box before, and just before I did the Compass Box Hedonism, which was number 219 in the challenge. So if you want a bit more background information in terms of Compass Box, the company, the history behind them, go back and see that one. It was launched in 2000 by a guy called John Glazer, who was a marketing director for Johnny Walker, who left and decided to try and basically strip away all the myths and bullshit around Scotch whisky in particular, and really focus on getting the best out of various whiskies, not necessarily single malts, but also doing a lot of work with like casks and oak and a bit more of the scientific side of it as well, and also transparency. And watch the hedonism video because I do go more in depth in terms of what they're looking for with transparency within the industry, being able to say, look, this is what is in your bottle, so you know what you're drinking and what they've done to it. So I had a number of Compass Boxes. They've got quite a range, and I had quite a few of them, but it was my wife that turned around and said, well, actually, I thought you were supposed to be doing distilleries and brands, and Compass Box is all one brand. Fair point, typical wife actually pointing out the obvious. So I kept in the hedonism because it was a blended grain and I had very little grain to do, and I've kept this one in because a lot of people turned around and said, when I went on Facebook and Twitter and said, look, I've got these Compass Boxes, I need to reduce these down because I need to give some other ones a chance, but I want to do the hedonism, it's grain. Is there another one potentially that we could include? And a lot of people said Spice Tree, because this was launched in 2005, and in 2006 they then had to pull it from the market because the Scotch Whisky Association turned around and said, you are not allowed to sell this because it is technically not whiskey, and therefore you can't market it as whiskey, and if you don't stop selling it, we're going to take you to court. And the Scotch Whisky Association being quite a powerful body, and Compass Box being a relatively small company, Compass Box decided to go, okay, we're not going to do this. Now the reason that the Scotch Whisky Association said this is because what they were doing, what Compass Box were doing, was they were taking single malts that had been matured in cask and then blending them together and giving them a second maturation in casks that otherwise wouldn't be used. Now, the majority of Scotch whisky is matured in casks that have previously held something else, be it bourbon or sherry or wine casks or anything like that. And so you've got casks that have previously matured bourbon, because bourbon has to be virgin oak, unused American oak that can be toasted and then it matures. So the whiskey interacts with the wood and then they empty it out, they bottle it, and because bourbon legally you've got to use new casks, they then, instead of throwing it away, it gets sent to the Scotch whisky industry or other industries that might want to mature whatever, rum or whatever you want to do. And Scotch will then use it as essentially refill. So it's imparted some of the flavours of the original bourbon in there. You put your whiskey spirit in there or your new make, and it will start to take some of the flavours back from the spirit that's been in beforehand. You can do that 2 or 3 times max before you're not really getting anything from the cask. It's not picking any of the flavours up because there's nothing left to give. So what you then do after that time is you chuck the barrels away, or you turn them into tables for pubs or chairs or whatever. You basically can't do anything with them for whiskey maturation. So what Compass Box did was they took these casks that otherwise were completely useless and put the whiskey that they were blending together, so these single malts from a few distilleries, together in the barrel, and then were inserting brand new staves, so basically planks of wood inside the cask. Now this is a fairly common trick with winemakers, tends to be more the cheaper end of winemakers. Rather than mature your wine or store your wine in wooden casks where you can get some of the flavour, winemakers will get massive, great big stainless steel vats with their wine inside, and then have either planks or in some cases literally wood chips that they're pouring in by the bag that will sit with the wine and impart flavour while it's floating around in the liquid. And the principle was the same as this. You've got your various single malts that are blended together in your cask that is essentially just storing it, and you're putting new staves of oak in, and it was French oak, brand new French oak, into the whiskey, and that's what's doing the maturation. That is what is interacting with your spirit and giving you more flavour. And it worked because it was getting absolutely fantastic reviews and people were loving it. And Compass Box openly said, because they're transparent, this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it. And the Scotch Whisky Association turned around and went, no, can't do that, that's not allowed. It's never been done that way. It's absolutely not allowed, you can't do it. And if you don't stop doing it, we're going to sue you. We're going to take you to court. So they had to stop. They couldn't afford not to, even though people were going, bloody hell, this is absolutely brilliant. So after 3 years, so it stopped in 2006, Spice Tree was then relaunched in 2009 and is available now. And if you're looking for a bottle on the shelf, it looks like this. And you're looking at about, Whisky Exchange is selling it for 44 quid. What they have now done is they've got what they're called hybrid casks. So they're taking part of the cask, and I think it's the head, so I think it's like the top and the bottom. And they're taking various degrees of toasted wood and kind of creating casks that allow them to do the equivalent of putting the staves in the barrel. So the barrels themselves are slightly altered with various degrees of toasted parts of wood at the top and tail of the cask, and then the maturing sections of the blended whiskies, the blended single malts, before they then bottle it. If you go to the Compass Box website, they've got a fantastic, it's like a technical breakdown, and it's a little chart of where the whiskies have come from, then they've blended it together, and then the various hybrid casks that they put them in and what flavours they give before they bottle it. It's absolutely brilliant, and it's, as a whiskey drinker, it's what I would want for every single one of the whiskies that I buy and try, because I think it is fascinating to know what they've done. In the blurb that they've got, it talks about that they are 100% more whiskies from Northern Highland distilleries. Now, in one PDF, it says it's including one from the village of Brora, and then in another PDF, they say including the distillery at Clynelish. If you look at this technical breakdown, it actually says it's Clynelish, Chianinique, and Dalwayne, or Dalyuen, however you pronounce it. I've not got to it yet because it's actually a Speyside distillery, but it is those three. It's those three that they use. It's 60% Clynelish and 20% of the other two. Now, Clynelish is fantastic. I've had it earlier on in the challenge. It is a superb whiskey, so my hopes are already up. I've not tried this before, but Clynelish is brilliant, and if it's 60% Clynelish, we're already onto a winner, let alone them playing around with these hybrid casks. But what's great is the fact that they are telling you we've taken 60% Clynelish, 20% Dalwayne, 20% Chianinique, we've put it into these casks, this is what we've done with it, and this is the end result. So I'm really looking forward to this. It spends 2 years in these hybrid barrels as well, so it's not like a quick 6-month finish. It has spent some time. What it doesn't say is what the ages of those particular whiskies are, but I'm not overly bothered, to be honest, because the end result is what's in the glass. It could be 3-year-old and then 2 years in the hybrid cask at 5-year-old. It could be 20-year-old. Non-chill filtered, no colouring added, all of that stuff. So I'm very, very intrigued to see what this is like. This is now their way, the way that they could sell Spice Tree to relaunch it was not using the individual staves, actually essentially rebuilding casks to mature it. Really nice colour. I mean, that's not got colouring added to it, but it's a cracking, lovely golden syrup colour. Oh, yes. It's got that wonderful Clynelish deep smokiness, but it's really subtle. It's a really soft, sweet smoke. Oh. my hopes are really up for this. 46% as well. I mean, that nose is brilliant. It's really, really good. What this has got is it's got a slight, I can remember the Clynelish nose because it was such a good whiskey. I think it's absolutely fantastic. And the brewer as well was also superb. Admittedly, that was, what was that, 32-year-old, something like that? But the Clynelish 14 was just not too far off, to be perfectly honest. And what this has got is it's got that really deep but subtle, gentle smokiness, but then there's a freshness to it, which I'm guessing is the other two whiskies. I can't quite, the Chianinique was okay, I seem to remember. The Dalwayne I've not yet got to, but this is quite a nice balance of that smoke, that subtle smokiness, and then there's freshness to it as well. There's kind of a light touch. Whoa. I was about to say they've got the name bang on in that it is spicy, but then all of a sudden, just as I swallowed, there was this burst of like not black peppercorns, red and white peppercorns right at the back of my throat. It was a real kind of like pow. It really caught me off guard. There's a lovely spice tree, bang on name. It's full of spice. And it's cinnamon and clove and nutmeg and gingerbread, but really rich gingerbread cake, like Parkin. If you've not had Parkin before, it's a very dense, quite thick gingerbread cake. I think it's predominantly north of England, I think, but it's really thick and chewy. It's a proper cake, but it's quite a dense cake. Definite gingerbread element to it as well. It's a definite after dinner whiskey, and I can imagine, not being a cigar smoker, but I can imagine it will go really well with a cigar. I mean, it's Clynelish through and through. It really is Clynelish all the way, but it's just got loads of character to it as well. You hold it in your mouth and it's gingerbread and it's Parkin, and I think some places call it tiffin as well. But then as you start to move it from the front of your mouth to the back to swallow, all of a sudden these other spices come in which are slightly more powerful. So it's not quite chili powder, but it's cinnamon, and it's like a sharp cinnamon and nutmeg, and there's clove in there as well. It's a cracking Christmas whiskey. It is absolutely bang on for Christmas. This is a perfect Christmas present for a whiskey drinker to have on Christmas Day. Give it to them in the morning to open, go, oh, I'm going to have that after Christmas dinner tonight. And once you've had your Christmas pudding, and once you've sat down and you're chilling out and you've got all your presents unwrapped, have a glass of this. It is a brilliant whiskey for a crappy cold winter's night when the wind's howling and it's pissing down with rain and it's belting against the windows, and you're sat indoors and you're all nice and tucked up and warm, and you just want a really, really nice, warming, spicy whiskey. That is superb. And to be honest, 44 quid, I think that is an absolute bargain. Now, some people might say, but for 44 quid, I can get a really good single malt. You can, but you can also get an absolutely brilliant blended malt. Just blended malt tends to get a bit of a rap because it tends to be more expensive. Because if you think about it, you've not got your grain whiskey to keep your costs down, to keep the price down. Your cost of production are more with blended malts because you've got to buy single malts from other distilleries that kind of want it for themselves. So they're not necessarily going to give you a fantastic deal. You've not got the capability to actually keep your cost of production down by getting hold of cheap grain whiskey to fill up the rest of the bottle. So blended whiskies, blended malts in the main tend to kind of feel like they're more expensive than the equivalent for a single malt. So, you know, with this, it doesn't say what the ages of them are, but it's entirely possible that it's like 8 to 10 to 12-year-old Clynelish and Chenanique and all this lot, and you can get a 14-year-old Clynelish for about 45 quid, I'm going to say, from what I can remember. So that there are some people that turn their nose up at blended malts, going, well, I'd rather have a single malt. Well, you're closing your mind, you know, open your eyes a bit and give it a go, because that whiskey more than matches any other single malt or bourbon for 45 quid. I would buy a bottle of that for 45 quid, no hesitation. I think that's absolutely fantastic, because that is taking the best parts of Clynelish and the best parts of Chenanique and the best parts of Dalwayne, even though I've not tried it yet. But I'm interested to try it now, if it's combining with the other two for this, and going, those are the best bits of those whiskies, enjoy. That is absolutely brilliant. Oh, so good. And what's even more impressive is I know what they've done to get to that. And the fact that they've done all of that to get to that impresses me even more, because I know their production, I know how they've done it, I know what the breakdown is. And it's that sort of transparency that I think is really important, because it's even more impressive knowing that that is the end result. And I think my feeling is that that is why whiskey companies, a lot of whiskey companies, don't want the transparency, because it would end up being a disappointment, because you put all that work in and it's ended up like that. Not great. I can't understand why. If you're proud of the whiskey that you make and you are proud of how it ends, even if somebody doesn't, even if it's you don't like it, you've got to appreciate the amount of work that's gone into it. And it just seems to be that a lot of companies are scared of saying, this is what we do, this is how we do it, these are the casks we do, this is what goes into it. Because when the end result is like that, it's doubly impressive, because not only do you have a fantastic whiskey, you've got an appreciation for the work that Compass Box have put in to getting to that stage. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Absolutely brilliant. Hedonism, superb. Spice Tree, superb. I've got some others that if the donators want them back, I will send them back. If not, straight after I finish this challenge, I'm trying the rest of them, because so far they're 2 for 2. And it's absolutely fantastic. It's 2 for 2, top draw 2 for 2 as well. So Jason, thank you very much for that. I think you did send me another Compass Box, and I can't remember which one it is, but if you want it back, I will send it to you. But if you don't want it back, I will happily try it and probably do another video of it, because I'm quite tempted to sort of carry on after I've done the challenge, but maybe not every day. But yeah, great stuff, absolutely brilliant. So Spice Tree, please do check it out. That is 2/3 of the challenge done. It's gone on for ages, and it really does feel like it's been going on for absolutely ages, but I'm very slowly but surely getting towards the end of it. So we'll carry on. And in fact, I think my next one that I need to upload is actually Potch Goo, which was the one I did earlier on this year. I believe that's the case. So the next video you'll see might be a fairly old one. We're talking 6 months ago. It's not that old. It's not like back in the 70s or anything. But yeah, it might be kind of, rather than on a tripod here, it might be like down there looking up my nose. So I shall see you at the next one, which might be the next one after that. You know what I mean. Anyway, see you later. Cheers.